We are back to do Verbal Money once again because it is the biggest fight week of the year for UK MMA. Before we get to UFC 304 that goes down this Saturday in Manchester, and Cage Warriors that is also happening this week on the Thursday, also in Manchester. Well, we're going to chat a little bit about Cage Warriors, this last event that went down this past weekend, and give you a little bit of a preview for the event they have coming up in a couple of days as well. So we'll chat about Cage Warriors for about 10 minutes or so, and then get into 304 because there's going to be loads to talk about on that card. But before we get into that, as mentioned, Cage Warriors was back in London this past weekend. Cage Warriors 174. Of course, it was all about the prize fighter tournament, this particular event, but there was tons of good stuff on this card. What did you guys make of it kind of as an overall before we dive into the specifics? Because it kind of feels like, I know that this week is the big week that we're all excited for, but to me, it felt like this week, started a couple of days early because I was super excited for this event, and it was super fun to watch. It was a long card, but I was able to split it up into nice little chapters.
I'll be honest, up there as one of the best Cage Warriors cards ever for me. I don't know if that's because of the prize fighter with a little one night, but I just thought every fight was just poof, and it was a long night of fights. But at the same time, I thought the pacing was so good. It was so easy to just be locked in for the whole event. And kudos Ian Dean, man. I mean, jeez, what? Honestly, so many fights I want to talk about and not enough time to. So good.
Yeah. But we do keep losing Steve, by the way. This is standard Verbal Money affair. Someone's camera is always up to something when it's a big fight week.
They just want to sabotage us, Kyle. They just don't want us to speak our minds.
The prize fight tournament, like you said, was the big kind of star of the show of this particular night. I was stoked to see how it all played out. And we ended up getting, a lot of rounds, which definitely contributed to the night being a long one at the Indigo. But all of the fights, I would say probably the final fight of the evening to determine the winner was not the best of watches. We'll get into that specifically in a minute. But all the other fights, the three other fights, were absolutely fantastic. I had so much fun watching the initial fights take place. It felt like there was so much urgency, and two of them ended up going to a sudden victory round, and then one of them was a very decisive win for Alexander Loof over Aiden Stephen. But man, Giordano versus Martignoni and Kadrian versus Wesmeyer 2 were bangers.
Absolute bangers. I can't even begin to talk. I was so shocked at Giordano as well, I'll be very honest. I was so shocked at Giordano. Whilst I thought he'd give Martignoni a good fight, I didn't expect him to do what he did. Absolutely unreal for him, unreal. Wesmeyer and Kadrian too as well. Again, so good. I actually thought Wes come into it really strong, and then just as it went out, you just saw Shirzad's just totally took over and went to the sudden death, didn't we? But Loof and Stevens, man. Loof looked outstanding in that first round. Absolutely outstanding. And for each of the fights of the night, you could proper feel the intensity sat at home. I thought you could see and feel they were so into it. That 50K was in the back of their minds and in their eyes the whole time. Unreal, man. Unreal. What a tournament. What a tournament.
Yeah, so obviously Kadrian ends up beating Wesmeyer via decision, and Loof got the decision over Stephen, and there was no need for the alternate, which a little bit disappointing for Giordano because he just pulled off the biggest upset in the tournament, right? And so I would have loved to have seen him get a crack at participating later on in the night, but I'm sure he will be set up for big things either way. I would love to see Giordano versus Loof. That would be absolutely sensational. But Kadrian ends up taking the win. He got a split decision, which it threw me for a minute reading that on Tapology because I forgot that one judge scored it for Loof, which I don't know how you do because I thought Kadrian won all three rounds fairly convincingly. Even though I'm a huge Alexander Loof fan, I really I really wanted him to pull this off. The dude is just so cool. But Kadrian, the grappling just came through. That Habib team grappling, unmatched throughout this tournament. And of course, he won the 50k and will go on to challenge Liam Gittins for the bantamweight title in the near future, which is a banger of a matchup as well. Steve, thoughts on the prize fighter tournament?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you decided to let me back in. I was waiting backstage for about 2 minutes.
I've got it full screen. I had no idea.
I know. I was like screaming in the private chat. Let me in.
I literally had my monitor turned off. I had no idea.
No. I mean, the tournament was great, right? Obviously, people weren't too happy with the final, but I mean, Shahzad did what he had to do, right? It was an incredible matchup between those two on paper. I mean, Love's got a lot of power. Shahzad did what he needed to do to avoid that power and get the win. But yeah, I think Love had a great tournament as well based on his performance against Aiden Steven. Definitely someone else whose stock has risen, as did Giordano. Like we said, that Giordano fight was incredible fight, and then to pull off the win the way he did, go into the third round, pulling off the win against the former champion. Man, I think a lot of people's stock rose in this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that's one of the most exciting parts about it is I know that this was a big selling point for the tournament going in, the fact that, you know, any of these guys could win. And the level was just so high. But yeah, like you said, it ended up playing out perfectly in the way that, you know, no one came out of this with taking a backward step, I think, like overall.
100%, man. As well, I'd just like to add as well, I know everyone's a bit unhappy with had their opinions, I'll say, so I won't say unhappy about the final, but they did just fight not long before, you know, and they weren't hard fights. I don't think people take that into consideration really, but it's hard not to when it's like as fast and furious as it was, man. I was gutted no one got the 10k bounty as well, but maybe next time.
Yeah,
maybe
for
next
sure.
time.
Yeah, I mean,
I need to just not touch any wires around me. That's the problem. Like, second I lean on a wire, my camera just dies.
We'll quickly run down the rest of this card. I'd said 10 minutes for the Cage Warriors stuff, and we haven't even got to the other card. So, I don't want to take too long because we could pretty much go through every one of these fights and talk about why it was exceptional because there's so many good finishes.
And there were 20 of them.
And there's 20 of them. So I will leave it to you guys to pick out what you want to pick out. The only thing I will say is that you know, Death, Taxes, and Jordan Vucenic winning via submission at the O2 Indigo. Enough said.
I mean, he's not at the experience level of Jordan Vucenic, but shout out to our guy Nick Bagley. He's approaching that sort of conversation as well. Death, Taxes, and a Nick Bagley rear naked choke. I think 5-1 or 6-1. 4 of those wins, I believe. I need to check the exact numbers, but it's something like that. 4 rear naked choke wins in 5 or 6 fights. That's the kind of numbers we're looking at here. So yeah, very incredible performance from him. And he said that he wants to be in a prize fighter tournament next. The way he fights, the way he finishes pretty quickly, I think he's a perfect fit for a tournament like that down the line whenever they choose to do it with featherweights. On the prelims, we got to talk about Riri Hudson, right?
I was just about to chime in with Riri, man. Brad Wharton didn't even finish describing the shorts they were wearing, and fucking what's the name? Sorry, as well now. Troro was just on her ass, man. Riri's got power, bro. Absolute power, man. Unreal performance.
Yeah, I tweeted, but that's a performance that had the anger of 2 fight cancellations behind it.
Yeah, amen to that, man. She bang, absolutely flawless. Like, what more do you want to say? What more do we need to say for her? I was gutted for the Jordan Little and Crooks May fight, though. I was gutted that ended because that was looking a really good fight as well. And it is what it is, isn't it? Like, it happens early on. I think Jordan Little's only had 1 fight, and so was Crooks May before this. So it's just like experience in it. But I'm sure we'll see both of them out smashing it soon. But yeah, and Matthew Elliott as well did a good little rear naked choke finish.
Yeah, was it the second fight, the Mazeo fight that had that crazy finish? That was nuts.
A ruthless knockout. Ruthless knockout. The Italians are coming through in Cage Warriors, though. I'm loving the Italian contingent in Cage Warriors.
Yeah, for sure.
Really enjoyable to watch.
The also the Jimmy Quinn knockout later on in the night at Flying Knee, that was crazy. There was a little bit of
bring
everything.
up Craig Edwards as well.
Yeah.
That was a brawl for 47 seconds, and then he landed one of the most vicious elbows I've seen in a while.
Yeah,
Ruthless,
just so much good stuff. I mean, even like, you know, if we were going to do like a full card rundown, even on, you know, the main card, Milada Hadi versus Thomas Paul,
Yeah,
and Giovanni Scott versus Ger Harris,
Yeah.
belters,
yeah,
like so good.
It's a shame we go for one Cage Warriors card. Well, it's not a shame, actually, because we've got another stacked one in Manchester.
Yeah,
on
I don't know.
Thursday.
I don't know whether, you know, I'm sure, you know, I've already seen a couple of fights on here that I know have changed, so I don't know whether this is like totally accurate at the time, but Tapology currently has this card listed as 21 bouts. So
Ooh.
we're on for another stacked one. But like you said,
on a school night, like
you said, the pacing is fantastic. So when we say about it feeling like a long card, it didn't feel like it necessarily like the watch time. I never was like, I could do with this wrapping up, because it just kept getting better somehow. But
no,
as we mentioned,
it's not like, you know, and Kyle will get the reference. It's not like a WWE show where you've got a match, then 25 minutes of video packages before the next match.
Yeah. We are back though with Cage Warriors this Thursday, as Steve said, on a school night. Little surprise addition to the Cage Warriors schedule here when UFC 304 was announced. And as I already mentioned, there is an absolute ton of fights on this card. So picking up, I mean, there's some really, really good stuff on this card. I don't think, you know, obviously when we had the prize fighter one in London, you've got that whole big selling point there. I think there's a few different fights on here that you could pick out as the ones to watch. I don't know. Personally, I think Mason Jones versus Michael Pagani is the one.
That is
I mean,
the one.
there are some really good ones. I could pick out a few others. Adam Shelley versus Ewan Davis is another one that jumps out. But yeah, Mason Jones versus Pagani is like that could be on any card, and I'm excited for it. So
that's UFC caliber. I think we'll get like Joe lower end. It's such a good fight, and Jack Axworthy debuting as well with Cage Warriors. That will be a naughty little performance.
Yeah, Teddy Stringer back as well. So it's a solid lineup. A lot of fights, like we said, but it's a solid lineup. Dylan Hazan, another one with a bit of a name.
The thing I love about
it's a fun one.
It's the thing I love about Cage Warriors. They're just never bad. They're never bad. The fights are always good. There's nothing to not like about any Cage Warriors. I couldn't tell you the last bad Cage Warriors card because I don't think there has been one.
No, I remember having that conversation, or like briefly speaking to Dan Strauss after a card once. I was like, "How'd you find the show?" And he was like, "It's a Cage Warriors show. You never get a bad Cage Warriors show."
You don't. It's not even like it's not even gassed either. It's just fact in it. They're so good. Kudos to them all.
Like we've been, you know, we've named a few fights here that like I feel like are must watches, and we haven't even mentioned the middleweight title fight in the main event.
Oh,
Belandi.
Is it Belandi and Roos? Is his name?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
Cracking fight. Belandi's so good as well. Another Italian I love. Like
you've got, speaking of Italians that we all love, Stefano Paterno versus Santolati, which is like pretty much a number one contenders fight.
Really good fight.
Like, I mean, top to bottom on this card, Yankee Hargens versus Harold Cohen's a great fight. Fran Breen versus Scarano is an unbelievable fight. You know, it really is. You know, if this card does end up being 21 fights, there is gems. I mean, we literally said it with this 20 fight card that we've just spoken about. There was highlights in every single fight. So I feel like this is like everyone's getting excited for 304. This is like a little added bonus, that I'll probably, Thursday I'm gonna wake up and go, we've got a Cage Warriors card today, and I'm down
it's
for
gonna
it.
go off. It's gonna go off.
I just want to shout out a fight because I know Brad Wharton has just tweeted about it on the prelims. And two guys I'm not super familiar with, but Manuel Deval and Mariusz Michalajewski.
Yeah, Marius is
I'm
good.
not super familiar with those guys, but Brad Wharton's just tweeted shouting that one out. So it's probably worth a mention. That's probably going to be a banger. I couldn't tell you, but if Brad says so, it's going to be a banger. And just going from this this topology list, I know Adam Collins just had a new opponent today as well.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah,
Big Cullen. Hope he gets back in the win column.
So, UFC 304. We're gonna have to go bottom to the top with this card because every single fight is worth mentioning. So we will just dive straight into it. But before we talk about the fights, I don't want to take too long because we are going to end up speaking about all of these fights for a while. But Corley, you are one of you are the only person I know who has experienced the co-op live arena, right?
Oh, if you say so. If you say
Have
so.
you not?
I have been a few times. I've been a few times now.
You confused
few
me for a
times.
minute there.
No,
I
because
thought I was wrong.
No, because you said you didn't know anyone other than me that's been. I was like, well, if you say so.
No, I don't think I do.
I like how you just throw out that you've been a few times. It's been over like a month.
It's really, honestly, I was a bit skeptical. Having to go past the Etihad Stadium is a bit disgusting. It's an eyesore. You can get past it though. You just don't, heavy not looking. But the arena's a mega. I wasn't very optimistic about it with all the messing about at the start of it opening. It's unreal. And how the seating is, I just don't. Do you know, like when you look at other arenas and you think, I don't want to get that seat because it looks like bad seating, like I won't be able to see, and you just like, I don't want it. I refuse to believe there's a bad seat in the house. How they've done the seating is so different to other arenas I've been in. And I think regardless where you've got a ticket, you're going to have a good view and it's going to be sick. That arena is mega.
Yeah.
And hearing Bruce Buffer on that mic in there, oh,
yeah, just from looking at pictures, that like the upper levels don't look too high.
they're not. The gap to the roof is massive from like the last standing. It's huge. It's really good. I was quite impressed, to be honest.
Well, that's a good little precedent because usually, we jump on these and the one negative we usually have, the one negative Corley usually has is that it's at the O2.
Fuck the O2.
So we're starting off strong, and we're
Yeah,
starting off.
Take some money with you, lads, because the pints are ridiculous, and I mean ridiculously priced.
Fortunately, the card doesn't start until 11, so I imagine a lot of people are going to get their drinks in before. And
it's what we want to read is, and it comes into MMA as well because PFL have a card there soon. Since the last time we recorded, I went to the OVO Hydro in Glasgow. What a shit arena that is! Horrible.
Wow.
So I don't envy anyone going there for PFL in September. The cards are fun, the PFL playoffs, but that's not a good arena.
Oh, that's funny. They nearly spat me bear back out then. That was funny, that. Fucking hell.
Well, we've started off on a strong foot with the review of the co-op arena, and we're starting off even stronger because the first fight of the night is Modestas Bukauskas taking on Marcin Prachnio, a fight that we predicted on our predictions.
It's no Ion Cutelaba, let's be real.
It is not the one that we eventually settled on, but it was one in the mix. I'd still, the Cutelaba fight would have been a lot of fun. But yeah, I said the same thing to Mo when I told him that this was the fight that I thought might be next for him. It's a fight that makes sense. I'm super happy for him that he's finally getting to fight in the UK for the UFC. This could be a really cool moment for him, and obviously, as I'm sure you guys will know, it's worked out very well for him with the timing in terms of training up north with the likes of Mick Parkin and Tom Aspinall to then be on this card with them as kind of a home away from home. That team, it's worked out perfectly for him.
Now, am I incorrect in saying, or am I correct in saying that he is the first fight on the card?
That's how it is on Tapology.
Yeah, I
Right.
think as it stands, I
Now-
saw Marcel posted the graphic earlier today.
This is where I have a massive problem. Why is he the first fight on the card? Like, higher up, 100%. I just think that's a downright disrespect to Modi. I'll be completely honest. And no disrespect to Sean O'Bannon. No disrespect. But he should be above that. He should just be up there. Maybe it's me being biased to Modi. Maybe it is. But I'm just not happy with it being the first fight of the card.
I would have more of a problem with it if it was a normal start time, right? But like the card starts at like 11, and so I'm sure there will still be people that aren't there for the first fight, but I would imagine there will be more people there for the first fight than usual, because just getting to the venue is going to be a problem. Otherwise, people are going to have to walk and stuff like that. Otherwise, so
I'm also
hoping
I'm also sure he's thrilled that he hasn't had to reschedule his whole training camp to fight at 4 a.m.
Corley
I'm
is
sure
frozen.
He's thrilled with fighting at 11.
Corley is frozen and he looks terrifying. I don't know. I don't know what has happened, but he looks a little bit like a mural of Vincent van Gogh. I don't know. I kind of, part of me wants to remove him and part of me wants to just keep him there. I'll remove him. See what happens. Well, always exciting. A lot has been made about this Sean O'Bannon fight that is the next fight of the night because of her opponent. Steve, I don't know whether this is something you've looked into too much. I've seen a lot of the controversy, at least.
I mean, yeah, I know what's going on. Obviously, Alice Adeline, she's supposed to be on Contender Series this year. 9-5. Her wins, I mean, combined, there's a losing record there. She's famous for TikTok. She's famous for OnlyFans. And yeah, that's what people are kind of talking about. And it doesn't help that you have someone who would have been perfect for this fight, like Danny McCormack, and they haven't. Instead, she's fighting on road to UFC in the Shanghai Performance Center.
I don't even know where to start with that piece of news. That is a head wrap of a announcement. yeah, it's a strange one. I get, I'm probably not as critical because this wasn't her original opponent.
Yeah, of course.
So that there's that at least, but I still don't think it's necessarily the best. Also, like you said, I mean, I guess she was supposed to compete on Contender Series anyway, but also, to get a late notice fight on a pay-per-view card is something that, pretty much every fighter that isn't signed to a major promotion would bite your hand off for. So, maybe there are better alternatives that they could have gone for. This next fight, I'm sure this is going to be one that you're excited for, with the return of Sam Patterson taking on Kiefer Crosby. The first of two England versus Ireland clashes on this card, and I'm super excited for both of them.
Yeah, Sam looked incredible in his last fight over Johan Lainez in Canada, in Lainez's home country. So yeah, I mean, he really put that first fight behind him. Obviously, we saw what happened in his UFC debut, unfortunately, but now he's certainly in that last fight, he's shown signs of that potential. It looked like he would have coming over from Brave, coming through the Contender Series. And yeah, this is a good fight. Kiefer's a character. Kiefer's a vet. It's going to be a tricky fight, but it's one I'm excited for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Corley, you said it best. They're trying to silence you.
They're trying to sabotage me, bro. Literally, the electric just went. It just went, and I was like, "Topped up, man. What's this?" And no, something tripped. I apologize, but yeah, sabotaging me, man. Can't believe this. Can't believe it.
Before we move on to the next one, do you any thoughts on Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosby, the first of two England versus Ireland clashes on this card?
I like both, but I think Sam is going to smash him, especially after Sam's last performance. He looked incroyable. Pardon my Francais. And yeah, I am really, really optimistic that Sam is going to put on another great performance. Because I was really upset when he debuted, because just from watching him in Brave and stuff, he was well better than what he showed in his first UFC debut. So I'm happy how he bounced back last time. So yeah,
I mean,
I hope he can go
you
again.
say he's better than what he showed. He didn't get a chance to show anything. He just got caught by a guy with a hell of a lot of power in a few seconds.
Hell of a lot, man. But
Yeah.
I think we're seeing him now. That last fight he did, I think moving up to welterweight was a cracking idea as well. He just looked so. I don't know how he made lightweight, to be honest. He could probably make middleweight now and probably light heavyweight and not even be phased.
I wouldn't.
Huge.
I mean, obviously, I've seen the guy in person. He's a really tall guy. I'm like, yeah.
Now
He's a very tall guy.
Is he like 6'2" or something? 6'3"?
Yeah, gotta be.
Massive, man. It's massive. For a welterweight as well. That's what I mean, man. Like, massive. But yeah, I can't wait for this next fight, though. This is the one we're going to talk about. Oh, can't wait for this next one.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't feel right to have this card and to not have. We've said this before. Maybe we have to make an official call on this at some point. But I feel like at this point he is the mascot of the Violent Money TV brand, Oban Elliott.
Oh,
the Welsh gangster, back again. This time on his second pay-per-view card, but this time in the UK. Just so happy for him. I can't wait to see this, and we will always be there as Oban Elliott's #1 fans. So that we're up for this one.
I love how. Sorry, go on, Steve. Go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say how he's been living his life since the first one. We've seen him at WWE a few times. We've seen him. I mentioned the OVO Hydra, of course. He was there as well for Clash at the Castle that night. Yeah, he's been living his life since that UFC debut, and good for him, man.
The rise he's had from the Contender Series fight to now has been so big. It's been absolutely crazy. But I think that's just testament not only to his fighting capabilities, but just how much of a sound lad he is. He's so normal and humble, and like I know a lot of guys are in this space, but to be like you say, he's been seeing CM Punk at wrestling matches, is all over the gaff, living his best life, and he's just so chill about it, and so like he just loves that it's happening for him, innit? And I love it too. Like, go on, Oban, and I think he's going to knock him out in the first round. I'll be honest. I'm going straight in with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what else is there to say about the Welsh gangster? Just so happy that he's on this card. I think that's absolutely amazing. As much as I am excited for the top fights on this card, seeing some of these fighters get to fight on a pay-per-view on home soil is just as exciting. And Ming Parkin is one of them. As you guys will know from the interview, and as I learned in the interview, Phil DeFries kindly reminded him ahead of this fight, a win here, and he ties Volkov for the longest winning streak in the heavyweight division right now at 4 in a row. Taking on Lucas Brzezinski. I told Mick this when I spoke to him in the interview, that we thought that he could probably get a ranked opponent for this card. That's what we had predicted and hoped for him. He didn't end up getting that, but as he said, the priority was to get on this card by any means necessary. And you would imagine that a fourth win in a row, he could earn a ranking spot, or at the very least get a ranked opponent next time out. So I have total faith in the fact that Mick is going to keep on going here, doing what he does, slow and steady, working his way up these rankings like nobody's business.
I love how he's getting on. I mean, I remember interviewing him years ago for like Cage Steel 25, a fight he had on there. And to see him now in the UFC 304 in Manchester is crazy, man. And I quite like this fight for him. Like you say, like slow and steady progression. Like what's to thingy about is he's developing bit by bit, and he's clearly leveling up each fight. You can see it. I'm all on the Mick Parkin hype train. I would have liked to see maybe a ranked opponent this time round, maybe like a rank 15. But I'm just, being biased as always. I think this is a really nice fight. And again, if he ties the record, man, he's got to be up there, hasn't he, next? He's got to get a nice little fight. I think he should have the pick of the bunch if he gets a good win here.
Yeah. Yeah, just while I've got his topology up here. Collie, Cage Deal 25. Do you remember what happened?
Jan Lysick was it against? No, what
Yes.
happened now? It was like
It says referee stoppage 2 minutes and 10 seconds over the, at the time, 2 and 17 Jan Lysick.
yeah, I was gonna say Jan Lysick, OG Jan Lysick is. I remember seeing a regional promotion saying they needed a fighter, like a fresh fighter, like with not much of a record, not much experience, and he messaged them saying, "Is a 3-19 record not enough experience for you?" And I just thought, I don't know, having 20 odd fights isn't enough experience, but okay, but okay.
That card, also that Cage Deal 25 card, also just fun fact, the pro debut of Dakota Ditcherer.
Yeah, crazy that. To be fair, looking back at Cage Steel cards, they do have some little gems on them. They do have some little gems of our fighters making the debuts and that.
Yeah, that's a big card. Connor Hughes, James Power, Kira Singh Sahota, Adam Bramheld.
Yeah, Kiru versus Scott Malone, was it?
They were on there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I'm
mad,
past it
mad.
now.
Well, this is what I love about when the cards
Yeah,
come
it
to
was.
England. All these UK guys we've watched from the start, like we've watched them. We know where they are before they're in the UFC, and to see them on the stage now, it's just mint. Just mint.
Yeah, I mean that tees us up perfectly for this next fight because it is a fight between two guys that we've watched them both come up through the ranks. A fight on late notice, a fight of someone moving up a weight class to take this fight. Like, this was not on the radar as a fight that could even happen or would happen when Kalen Loughran's opponent pulled out. And whilst we were theorizing all these different options, as I said to Kalen himself, Jake Hadley might be the best of those options, and it wasn't even one that I considered. Of a Brit stepping in to fight him on short notice, up at bantamweight, what an absolute banger this fight is. Like, if they had given us like a couple of months of build up for this one, my excitement level would be sky high right now. And the fact that we're getting it on a week's notice when I never saw it coming is kind of even better. It's like an extra surprise fight to be gasped at. And I was excited for Kalen's other fight. I thought the Ramon Tavares fight was a great fight as well, but this is another level.
I am very, very excited for this. As you all know, I'm a very big Jake Hadley fan. Very big Jake Hadley fan. But I'm also a big Kalen fan. And I am so torn. But this is what I love. This is Cage Warriors champs coming at it. They've both got there. They're both in the UFC now. I cannot wait. I feel like they should both wear yellow gloves for this fight, honestly. Like, I am so excited for it. This is probably one of the fight I'm the most excited for on this whole card now. Which might seem a bit crazy to other people watching, but just to see two Cage Warriors guys come through the whole process, go on to the UFC, and now come together, I can't wait. I'm so excited, man. And on short notice as well, such short notice. Jake Hadley's a gangster. Kalen's a gangster. I can't wait. I'm so buzzing. So buzzing.
Well, I remember Jake saying when the card first got announced how desperate he was to get on it. So
yeah,
it's buzzing that he found a way on, and what a fight it is, right?
So good, man. So good. I think if Leon, jumping a bit ahead here, so I'll reel myself back in afterwards, but I think if Jake wins and Leon gets the win later, in fact, no, ignore that. I'm going off topic. We're just going to reel it back in. I can't wait for this fucking fight. 10 out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it is absolutely outrageous. The fact that this wasn't even on a card a few days ago is amazing. Another former Cage Warriors alum, got a fair few of them to get through still. Molly McCann taking on Bruno Brazil. This is going to be a fight that, if the Co-op Arena isn't bouncing for an Ireland versus England clash of two former Cage Warriors champions, it certainly will be by the time this fight comes around. Molly coming off of a one of the most important wins of her entire career as well. I know that meant a lot to her. Getting that win over Diana Belbita last time out, getting one of my favorite things to type ever, which is that she got a meatball sub. Never gets tiring. It might not be, if we want to give ourselves a pat on the back for the Fantasy Matchmaker podcast, it's not quite Molly McCann versus Loma Lookbunmi, but Bruno Brazil either way. Still a good fight.
No, it's not a bad fight, to be fair. You know what I'm going to say? I think Molly's going to win convincingly. I think she's going to win very well. But I think it's a good fight for Molly, to be honest. Especially after that last win against Belbita. That was a ruthless little armbar. I think she just needs to get back on her rhythm a bit after that. Was it 2 she lost in a row?
Yeah.
I think it was 2. Was it? Yeah.
Erin and Stoliarenko.
Yeah, she looked really good in that belt. Like, she looked so good, like as if those hadn't happened, which might be a stupid thing to say. But no, I'm glad to see her getting her footing back again. And with a win here, let's just get her going. Do you know what I mean? I like Molly. She's got loads of talent there, and let's just go, man. Let's just go. Up the Scousers, man. Up the Scousers.
It does feel like, I know Bruna Brazil's 1 and 2 in the UFC, but it does feel like a bit of a step up from Diana Belbita. So that's the one thing that can concern me. She's Brazilian. She's got a few submission wins on her record, or a couple at least. So there's that aspect to it. But I mean, yeah, I think generally it's a pretty good matchup for Molly to go to after that last win.
Yeah, for sure. Another
and Bruna's last fight was a loss to the aforementioned Loma Lookboonmi. So they're around the same sort of area in the rankings. That fight can still happen.
Yeah, I hope it does. A sneakily good fight, I think, this one. Nathaniel Wood versus
really
Daniel Pineda. Of course, we're always going to be excited to watch the prospect fighting on UK soil. But yeah, this one isn't, I think maybe because some of the Wood fights we've had as of late have been like real jump off the page ones. When this fight, I think this was the first fight that we got announced for this card, and I was like, that's a really strong start, because that will deliver 9 times out of 10.
No, I agree. I was going to say I wasn't impressed with Pineda last time against, was it Caceres? If I've said that right, Alex Caceres. I'm chatting so much now. I wasn't that impressed with him there, but prior to that, I have been really impressed. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, to be fair. Nathaniel obviously coming back in at 145. It's going to be a good fight. I think it'll be a really good fight.
I mean, it's about as big of a veteran test as you can get. Daniel Pineda making his UFC debut on UFC on FX1.
Damn.
2012.
Did he?
Yeah.
Crazy,
been in the UFC
man.
since 2012. Fought the likes of Mike Brown, Diego Brandao, Leonard Garcia. But then left the organization, went to Bellator, went to Legacy, and then came back in 2020. And since then, 2-2. Tough losses against Cub Swanson and Alex Caceres, 2 more vets. But I think it's a great matchup. Nathaniel's looked good since making that jump up in weight as well. I mean, we mentioned Sam Patterson earlier, but it looked perfect for Nathaniel, especially in that debut at the O2. But yeah, I'm excited to see where he can go. And it's a good fight, like you said. It was the first one, and yeah, jumped off the page. And obviously, Nathaniel, he's looked good at the weight, but he's looking to get back on the right track after that loss to Naimov.
I will just throw in, though, I'm really gutted this isn't Nathaniel Wood versus Lerone Murphy. I felt that would have been perfect, but
I mean,
I'd agree with you.
I think
Murphy,
that ship sailed for the time.
Lerone just won all 5 rounds against Edson Barboza.
No, that's it. No, but still, I feel like that's a good little. I think we have a little domestic super clash, though. I feel like it still can work. It can still pop.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get it at some point, but yeah, it does feel a little bit like they've gone separate ways for a minute. I mean, Lerone coming off of a massive win, and then Nathaniel obviously had that pretty controversial loss last time out. So be good to see him back on home soil, back so he can regain his footing in this division, and then push on from there. Up next, we have a fight that was originally on the main card and is no longer, but probably the fight with the most stakes behind it, apart from the 2 title fights at the top of this card. Mohamed Mokaev taking on Manel Kape. I think pretty likely that the winner of this fight will get a title shot next, unless maybe Kai Kara France knocks out Steve Erceg or something like that next month. Maybe you can see that instead. But I would imagine that a title shot is what both guys are gunning for here. And a huge fight in the flyweight division. Mokaev, do you guys think that Manel Kape is Mokaev's toughest test? I know that he fought Alex Perez and he got that win. Didn't look amazing, still got the win. And then Perez went out and got that finish over Nicolau and looked fantastic. So that made the win age a little bit better, I guess. But
I think it could. I think it is, to be fair. When Cappy's in there, he turns up. It's just a problem of, is he going to actually show up with all these cancelled fights he's had? But if he shows up, I think it'll be a really good fight. And I was a big fan of Mokaev before he was coming into the UFC. Watching him come up for the IMAFs and stuff, amazing. But his performances have been good. I'm not trying to be all a negative Nancy about it, but they've not been as impressive as I thought they would have been. I thought he would have done a lot more than what he has done. He's getting the wins and he's beating good opponents, so I don't know what I'm chatting about. But I think Kape could really cause him severe problems in this fight. Like, this could really be his first real risk to his O. Do you know what I mean? He's going to have to be on for Mokaev, but at the same time, so is Kape. Mokaev's relentless. If he gets you down, you're not getting off him. So it's intriguing, man. It's intriguing. I don't know where I'm siding with this one, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Kape is a different test to Alex Perez, but I mean, at his best, Manel Kape is one of the best flyweights in the division. He just hasn't really had a big name opponent to show that against. Obviously, he lost his UFC debut, of course, to Pantoja. Since then, he's not really had a name of that sort of level to get in there with and kind of prove where he's at. But I think at his best, Manel Kape is a very dangerous proposition for Mokaev. He's obviously got the power, which we haven't really seen Mokaev up against in the UFC. Yeah, this is a really fascinating one for me. Like you mentioned, Mokaev, he's been fairly dominant through the UFC, but maybe not in ways fans would have liked. So yeah, definite number one contenders fight for me, especially if Mokaev wins, and one I'm very much looking forward to. I mean, the placement's a bit weird, but
yeah,
I think because it should be on the main card, but
Yeah.
in the place it's in at the minute, you're kind of risking heading into the main card with a bit of a whimper if it goes like some of the previous Mokaev fights. Usually you want that banger to really get people going before you head into the main card. It's not that. I thought they might have put the Nathaniel Wood fight there.
To be fair though, looking at that next fight on the main card, that is a banger. That's going to get people bouncing.
Yeah, if there is any concern that Mokaev and Manel Kape might slow things down a little bit, I don't really have that concern with Arnold Allen and Giga Chikadze, who I think we kind of said like before this card, really started to shape up, that you probably have those guys as the main card opener because it's just a great stylistic matchup. Both guys are super exciting to watch, and it's crazy to me that we're in a position with Arnold Allen where, I think that, if you're picking Giga to win, then you're saying that Arnold Allen is going to lose 3 in a row, which is crazy. I mean, at the same time, he went 5 rounds with Max Holloway, which is one of the best aging losses that you can possibly have in MMA right now after what Max Holloway has been doing.
Oh, and it was competitive.
Yeah, and Movsar as well. Obviously, we don't know, how Movsar's gonna pan out in terms of his next fight with Aljamain Sterling and stuff like that, but super competitive with Movsar as an underdog in that fight as well.
He won that fight.
I know a lot of people
just gonna say
felt that way. So it's crazy, but I don't. I'll be honest and say that I'm not too. I wrote my staff predictions for this earlier for MMA News, and Arnold Allen is probably the pick that I am the most confident in terms of these big fights. I just think he's going to be too much for Giga Chikadze, who I am a big fan of. So I am excited to see this fight regardless.
I completely agree, Kyle. Completely agree. It's going to be a good fight. I think they're going to be, technically, they're both kind of at a similar level with how they fight. Stylistically.
Yeah.
But I just think Arnold's going to edge it. I really do. He's the thing with Arnold's well, he can turn the aggression on and just proper go at them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
in
the
front of the
Dan Hooker
English
fight
crowd
springs
as
to
well.
mind.
Yeah. Nah.
The-
If he's got a Tesco's meal deal in him beforehand, no one's stopping him. Let's be honest. That's all that stopped him with Holloway and Evloev in it. Like, just didn't have the meal deal in him. So that's what I put it down to.
Another thing on this, Arnold, we don't see him take it to the ground often, but he's got 4 submissions on his record. He should have the advantage there against Giga, you'd think.
100%,
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the decider. Is I think that Arnold could probably have a kickboxing fight with G. I'm not saying that he comes out on top in that, but I'm saying he could do it and he would be competitive at least. But I just think Arnold's so well rounded. Like you said, we haven't really seen that as of late because good luck taking Movsar Evloev down and good luck taking Max Holloway down. But I think if he uses his whole skill set, he just has so many more weapons in this fight to get it done. The fight is on the main card in place of Mohamed Mokaev as versus Manel Kape. I said when Christian Leroy Duncan, let me just look this up because I've forgotten who it was, when he was supposed to fight Robert Brychek. I've probably butchered that name, but I somewhat jokingly remarked that it was the people's main event. And now we have Christian Leroy Duncan versus RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez on the main card. And it's an unbelievable fight. I'm surprised that we didn't put this one together on our fantasy matchmaker. We went with Eric Anders, and I like their fight way better. So, tip of the hat to John Shelby and Mick Maynard because I didn't see this one coming, and it is so much better than what I thought we were getting and what we predicted or what we hoped we would get. So,
it's just an absolute scrap, isn't it? It's an absolute scrap. We all know what Duncan can do as well, but the fact we know what RoboCop can do as well, to see him go at it together, like that's going to be a striking matchup of just hell, man. I can't wait. I can't wait. That and Kalen and Jake are up there with my favourite fights on the card. Unreal, man. Unreal. And I am very biased again, you know, Cage Warriors boys, but I really do think Duncan's just got it stylistically and again with just how he strikes. RoboCop will have problemos.
I mean, and talk about a step up for Duncan as well.
Yeah.
From Ribeiro in his last fight, but also from Robert Brychek. This is a fight that can legitimately put Duncan right outside the rankings.
100%, man. To be fair, though, Brychek's a very good opponent. He slept so many people in Octagon. He's got that power. He would have been a dangerous fight for Duncan, but this is the better fight. This is the better fight from what we've seen. So, sorry to interrupt you there, Kyle.
No, that's okay. I don't remember. I don't remember what I was going to say. I'll be honest.
I am so sorry. That's the worst when people do that. I'm so sorry.
I remember. Like, this isn't going off of how the UFC have things, but at least on the Tapology rankings, you've got Christian Leroy Duncan as the 37th ranked middleweight worldwide, and Gregory Rodriguez is number 18. So that's a huge step. Mad. And like you said, with a win, probably looking at top 15 just off of this one fight alone. And I think that up until this point, you were probably looking at a couple of more fights for CLD until we get to that point. But you beat Gregory Rodriguez, and suddenly you're in that mix. So
I mean, it's when you bring all that, and then you obviously mention think about flying to the UK as well. It's a curious decision from Gregory Rodriguez to take this fight on short notice.
I mean, he's down for a scrap, isn't he? So
of course.
But man, I don't know how anyone, like, fair play to fighters who take stuff on short notice. Fair play anyway, like that's already insane. But I don't know anyone who watches tape of Christian Leroy Duncan and goes, "Give me that on 2 weeks." Not a chance.
I honestly
think
in his
home country, the other side of the world,
Duncan could be our next champion. Not counting Tom unifying the belt, not counting that because I obviously reckon that's next. But after that, I really reckon Duncan could go all the way. I'm gonna put that out into the ether and let it float, and I'm gonna manifest it.
Middleweight is a strange,
an awful division.
It's
an awful division. It is the worst division. I'll be honest. But Christian Leroy Duncan makes it bearable for me, and so does RoboCop. So
Yeah. It's an
I mean, at
absolute
least the
belt.
division's going to be a bit more normal next month when Izzy takes the belt back. So we're back to normal service has been resumed at UFC 305.
If by normal service you mean the reign of the great DDP, then I agree.
I've said it from day. DDP is the GOAT. He's not, but Izzy's not going to beat him again. I don't reckon. I really don't. After he's had that nose, what did he have? Something done with his nose breathing? Elite DDP right now. Diamond Dallas Page could never be Dricus Duplessis.
Tangent here. It was the Aspinall and Volkov card, and I was around outside the card, and I saw a guy. Bear in mind, this was like a couple years ago, and I saw a guy wearing a Dricus Duplessis shirt, and I'm like, "That's strange. You're wearing a Dricus Duplessis shirt." Dricus Duplessis was like a prelim guy at the time. That guy's probably pretty happy right now.
The thing is, though, I was saying it's hard thing, innit? Because it's different for me because, like, he was massive in KSW. He was massive. Everyone knew him, as far as I was concerned, anyway. And then he comes to UFC and everyone's like, "Oh, who's this new guy on the prelims?" It's like, why is he on the prelims? He shouldn't be on the prelims. It's like we were saying before. We joined Kyle. If Soldic joined the UFC instead of going to one, he'd have been up there with like a top fight straight away. So should have he. It was crazy, man.
I mean,
crazy salad.
Again, tangent that we don't need to go down, but it was Soldic, especially when you've got Duplessis as the champion with their history. You can Alex Pereira track Soldic. Like
I'd be doing the Demetrius Johnson and Ben Askren if I was Mr. White. Don't know who though. That's just like getting into it, but yeah.
I mean, what aren't gonna want any MMA fighters, are they?
No.
They're not gonna want more MMA fighters.
Get Jared Brooks. Just take Jared Brooks to the UFC. I just want to see him on the mic with Colby Covington just next to each other, banging that.
Right. Final 3 fights of this card. Before we get to the 2 title fights, we have got a fight that is sure to split opinion. It has done since it was made. I'm sure it will for the rest of this week, as Paddy the Baddy Pimblett takes on King Green in the lightweight division. Green obviously with a ranking, so Paddy's first ranked opponent. So could get into the top 15 here on the same fight that his UFC contract expires, which would be absolutely crazy. So I've found this one and the next fight we're going to talk about the 2 hardest ones to call when doing my predictions. I'm really quite conflicted on this one, and I'm surprised, to be honest, because when this fight was announced, I thought that I was pretty confident in saying that King Green would be too much for him, but I'm starting to come around to the idea of Paddy Pimblett going undefeated in the UFC and then his contract expiring.
And on to Misfits he goes. But I'll be honest.
Also, that I saw that I actually saw the interview clip. He was like, "I'm not leaving the UFC." Like the clickbait nonsense that came from that clip just it really annoyed me. He did mention Misfits, but he also said, "Yeah, I'm not leaving the UFC."
He's going to stay in the UFC. And he'll just get
I will say I've watched about 3 interviews where he said it, so it's not. I agree with you that I don't think he's being as, you know, it maybe is blown out of proportion a little bit as to what he says, but he has mentioned it a good few times, specifically Jake Paul's name also. So I think there is some weight, but I also don't think he's going to leave the UFC.
No, he'd be stupid to leave now, regardless of the result of this fight, because like he said already, didn't he? He's not fighting ranked opponents until he gets a better deal, and if he gets this win here, then like he can negotiate so much.
He has a track record for doing this, and the UFC, the one thing that the UFC want less than anything is one of their big name fighters going and fighting Jake Paul.
Literally, man.
He's not going to fight Jake Paul. He's half his size.
Oh, so is Mike Perry.
Have you watched Jake Paul fight anybody?
Yeah, but like he's smaller than Mike Perry, and he's not a good boxer.
But to be fair though, Paddy knows how to bulk. If there's anyone that can bulk, it's Paddy. So I have no doubts he's going to get to Logan Paul. Outweigh Logan Paul even. Do you know what I mean? But
Sure.
no, this is honestly 2 fights ago I would have said nah, Bobby King Green, sorry, all day. But I was actually very impressed with Paddy versus Tony, and I know it's Tony on his skin, and I know but Tony is still a very dangerous opponent. I don't care what anyone says. Oh, I don't know. If I wouldn't bet on this, this is not going in my ACCA when I do the bet. I am not putting one on this fight. It's too close, man. I want to say Paddy can snatch it. I think submission wise, yeah, Paddy could take it. He's probably got more options to win. But Bobby Green is strong.
I think Bobby's
and he's good
ground
on the
game is
ground.
second.
Yeah, no, I was going to say he's good on the ground. Hasn't he? He's had a few submission wins, hasn't he, in the UFC?
Yeah, he subbed Tony not that long ago.
Yeah, he did. I was going to say, nah, it's a tough one, man. I am not going to throw my feather into any hat on this one, other than it's going to be a banger. But I don't know. What are you reckoning, Steve?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. You know, Paddy, he leaves his chin up there, and Bobby hits really hard. But you know, Bobby, he's in that twilight of his career, and he's obviously had a bit of an up and down resurgence. But we also saw what happened. Jalen Turner, was it that?
Yeah.
Slept him. Yeah. Not that I'm saying that Paddy Pimblett is on the level of Jalen Turner, especially on the feet, but it's a really tricky one. I'm with you.
No, it throws questions into your decision, doesn't it? You're like,
I feel like my head usually goes straight towards, like you said, Paddy has been working a lot on his striking over the last year or two, but he does tend to throw very big and very exaggerated movements. And I'm just like, Bobby Green is just going to matador him for 15 minutes. It's going to be a tough watch. But then I don't know. There's something about where I'm like, I know that Bobby Green, that is his whole style, is having his hands low and baiting people into throwing so that he can counter them. Every now and then, again, not saying that Paddy Pimblett's striking is suddenly going to look like Jalen Turner's, but every now and then he gets caught. And I don't know. There's something about Paddy where if anybody can pull it out the bag and get a finish when you think
it feels that way. I mean, Paddy's won 5 fights in a row in the UFC. Who would have predicted that when he made his debut?
No one. Especially, I've been really weighing in. Do you remember when he lost to Nasrat in Cage Warriors?
Nasrat.
I can't pronounce his surname.
Haqparast. Haqparast fought.
No,
Green,
not
right?
Nasrat. Narimani.
Narimani.
So sorry. Getting the wrong names there. I'm so really sorry. Oh my God. Nasrat. Imagine that. But, I forgot what point I was actually trying to make now completely. What was I saying? What were we saying?
Something about Nasrat.
Yeah,
Nasrat's not even here anymore, man. Nasrat's not even here anymore. I can't remember the point I was making, I'll be very honest. But what I think, though, as well, and I know it might be a bit of a mad one, I think Paddy, like you said there, Kyle, with how King Green's stand-up is with his hands low and stuff, I just think he could get flying guillotine. And I don't want to just throw it out there, but he doesn't care, Paddy. And that's what's another thing about him. He's so unpredictable in what he does. How would you plan for someone that's just going to go throw a madness on you? You can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I find that one really tough to call. I'm super excited for it to see how it goes down. I feel like there have been some Paddy fights, specifically early on, where it felt like, okay, this it's going to be fun, but it does feel a little bit like we're treading water. But and the Tony fight, there was detractors because of the skid that Tony was on. But Bobby Green, now King Green, I know that he had that knockout loss to Jalen Turner, but up until that point, he looked phenomenal. And then against Jim Miller last time out, he looked great as well. So this is we're at the real deal now. Not to say that, I agree with Corley that there were some positives to take away from the Tony Ferguson fight, but regardless,
well, there was for sure.
Yeah. We've got 2 title fights at the top of this card to round it out. 2 UK champs defending on home soil. We have never had this in the UK before. What a moment this is going to be. And whilst the night ultimately ends with Leon Edwards' welterweight title defense, there's something, I don't know. It feels, I mean, we had a legitimate conversation over whether Tom Aspinall would headline this card, which is crazy because Leon Edwards is, the established name more so. And of course, making his third title defense.
And if I remember right, you and Jake both said that Aspinall should headline. And I was like, no, Leon's the real champion.
I agree that Leon Edwards should have headlined and obviously is, but it was more of a commentary on the fight against Bilal Muhammad being a bit of a strange way to end a night at 4 a.m. But regardless, even though Leon is headlining this card, this feels like Tom Aspinall's moment. Not to say that this won't be an incredible moment for Leon. It definitely will be, but of course he has headlined a pay-per-view in the UK before when he fought Kamaru Usman for the 3rd time. This is Aspinall's moment. And it feels special. And I also think that this Curtis Blades rematch is the hardest fight to call on this card, I think.
No. Fully agree. But I think Tom's got it in the bag. It's going to be the most competitive fight of the card, I reckon. But he's just looked unreal, Tom Aspinall. And Curtis Blades, sometimes I rate Curtis highly, and then something happens, and I think, why have you done that, Curtis? Come on, man. He should have been champion ages ago, to be honest. He should have had shots ages ago. It's a scary one, though, for Tom. He's got so much power in those hands Blades has as well as the grappling. So it's going to be tasty, boys. It's going to be tasty. I'm about it.
I'm just looking at Curtis Blades' record. The only 3 people to beat him. The 3? Francis Ngannou twice. Derek Lewis and Sergey Pavlovich. 3 proper hitters. You know what I mean? Aspinall's not quite that. We saw what he did against Pavlovich, but he's more technical with it than those 3. So he might not be able to finish Curtis just like he did with Pavlovich. There might be, and then if it goes to the ground, Blades has got such a dominant, such a heavy wrestling base. Obviously, Aspinall's great with his submissions, but when you've got that kind of pressure on you, it can be tricky.
No, I agree with that, Steve. But there's one thing you haven't took into any consideration there, which I'm quite upset about, to be honest. Tom trains with Phil DeFries.
He does.
He can't lose.
The man catches pigeons on a regular basis.
On a regular basis. The KSW champ does what the hell he wants, bro. And yet, no, but all jokes aside, no, I completely agree. It's going to be dead difficult, but I just think Tom's so good at figuring out the puzzle, knowing what he's got to do, adapting to everyone. I think he's just on it. Like you say, he's so technical. Maybe not put him out, knock him out, maybe not even submit him, but I think he'll definitely get the better of him. If Blades wins, I see it through like a flash knockout, though, I won't lie. Like a proper crowd shutter-upper, like, ooh. But we won't put those negative vibes out there. We won't do that.
I mean, there's not exactly much you could read into 15 seconds, 15 seconds that we saw them in the cage together. But it did look like from that first exchange that Blades got the better of it. So there is that. Obviously, it's 15 seconds, and then we saw what happened. But apart from those 15 seconds, we've never seen Aspinall in there with an opponent like Curtis Blades.
No.
Completely different to everyone else he's fought in the UFC. The closest is maybe Spivak and Tybura, as in like they're the guys that are gonna like kind of hold you.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's no one really. But even those two to Curtis Blades is a completely different level in terms of just the traditional American wrestling, the pressure that Curtis is going to put, and like you said, the power that Curtis has as well. It's a different matchup for Tom.
Yeah. I think one of the really interesting things that you mentioned, the people that Blades has lost to.
And I mentioned Spivak and Tybura. Neither of those got close to him. He took them both out in the first round.
Yeah. The thing that's really causing me issues is that Blades has been knocked out a few times and in pretty bad fashion as well. But like you said, very different kind of power to Tom Aspinall. Those guys all just have crazy heavy hands where they can catch you with a glance and shot. And whilst I'm sure Tom Aspinall can do the same thing, he tends to catch people when they don't expect it, you know, with the speed and the distance he can cover. And I just don't know how that works covering that distance against a guy like Curtis Blades, who you're putting yourself at danger of a level change, and also he has power in his hands as well. The one thing that does kind of push me towards Aspinall is, whilst Aspinall doesn't have that same kind of power that like a Derek Lewis has, where he can catch Curtis with an uppercut and put him out, his decision making is so good, Tom Aspinall's. And whilst Blades has been knocked out by 3 of the hardest hitters, you know, we've ever seen, his decision making at points is a bit confusing. It has let him down in the past. And also, if you speak to anybody who trains with Tom Aspinall, they say he looks good in the first round. Wait until you see him go past that, because he fights the same way for 25 minutes. And I don't know if I can say the same thing for Curtis Blades. So if it does go past the first 2 rounds, I think we could see Tom start to take over. And I think he probably will have to battle through some tough moments in order to get it done as well. But I am like leaning ever so slightly towards Aspinall. Maybe it's a little bit of bias that ticks it over that line, because I think this one is so hard to call. But yeah, what a moment it'll be regardless for Tom to get his walkout in Manchester with the it's the world title. We can just call it the world title. We don't need to pretend.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can. Jones and Stipe can have that legacy bullshit. This is the real heavyweight title we've got going on. But hopefully, if that rumor of Jones and
has got some other
Miocic,
bullshit to deal with at the minute.
yeah, he does. But if that Jones and Miocic fight happens, is it UFC 309? Apparently, there's a rumor for. I don't know if it's right, if it's bollocks, whatever. But just pure speculating. If it does happen,
November. Yeah.
I really hope we see Aspinall Jones made ace. Even though I think Jones will retire, I think make that ASAP. Like I would write in Jones' contract, you're fighting Aspinall next. But I also think we'll see Aspinall versus Pereira for a heavyweight title before we see Aspinall versus Jones. But comme ça.
We are left with one fight to talk about. It is another rematch, and it is the main event: Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad 2 for the welterweight title. As spoke about when we spoke about Tom's moment, we've kind of been down this route with Leon once before, headlining a UK pay-per-view, bringing the belt back. He was successful on that occasion against Kamaru Usman. Obviously, defeated Colby Covington in December of last year in a incredibly strange fight that was also very cathartic, I'm sure, for Leon and for a lot of MMA fans that were grown very tired of Colby Covington. And yeah, he is up against another very dominant grappler who, props to Bilal, has put together a very, very impressive win streak since that strange fight with Leon when they met a few years ago that ended via eye poke. I don't really think you can look into that fight too much. They were both in different positions in their careers, and a lot has changed since then. But I don't know. We've had this conversation in the group chat ever since, you know, this fight has been on the cards for so long at this point, even before the Colby fight, right? We're talking nearly, you know, probably 8-10 months, I think, that this fight has seemed like it was going to happen at any point. And I don't know. I don't. It's not that I don't rate Bilal Muhammad, because I do, but I just think we've seen Leon deal with grappling specialists. And I feel like Kamaru Usman and Colby have a little bit more about them than Bilal does. So I feel pretty confident in picking Leon Edwards in this fight. And it kind of scares me that I'm this confident, because usually if it's a fighter I really like, I'm not this confident, you know?
No, I agree. I won't love Bilal Muhammad, I won't lie. I like Bilal Muhammad. I think it's about time he got his title shot. I really do. I think he's been done dirty. And if there's one thing I stand for, it's fairness for people, man. Like, he should have had a shot ages ago. But I don't see anyone picking Bilal. I'll be real. Leon, like you said there, Kyle, he's just done so much. Usman and Colby, I'd say, do have a bit more than Bilal. And I just think it's a straightforward win for Leon, honestly. I really do. And I'm saying that now, and I'm getting a bit of twitchy bum time because I'm worried that that means the worst is going to happen. But from just what we've seen with Leon, I just don't think Bilal has anything to offer him that he's not seeing, not sorted out, and not dealt with. And come on, do you know what I mean? So easy Leon for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what Leon does to high-level grapplers in his last couple of fights. He stuffs their takedowns and then takes them down. Which is just, it's insane the fact that we've got a British guy at that level doing that to Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. Yeah, I don't see many people probably picking Bilal. Basically, unless you're Jason Anik or CM Punk, I have questions if you're picking Bilal. Unless you're like one of the guy's best friends, then
No. I should have looked at some stats really, but like I don't know what Bilal Muhammad's takedowns or Leon Edwards' takedown defense is like, but
I mean, I can tell you without looking at stats, Leon's takedown defense is very, very good.
yeah, no, it is very good. Just like number wise, like I just can't see it happening. I really can't. I really can't. And I would like to say,
the
oh
only
no,
way
he's
is
going to
if
cause him
Bilal.
problems.
The only way is if Bilal, he doesn't get the takedown, but if he's able to hold him against the fence for a while and win the rounds that way. That would be that's his way to win.
This is another big part of it, right? I did listen to somebody do a preview of this card earlier, and they did pick Bilal Muhammad, and a lot of their point was about, you know, his ability to keep people against the cage, but also his takedowns usually come from getting opponents to the cage. And whilst, you know, I agree he is very good at that, Leon Edwards' cage wrestling is so good.
Yeah.
We saw it against Colby where he was reversing takedowns and taking Colby down. And whilst it was a weird performance from Colby on that night, and you can say maybe Kamaru Usman wasn't the same Kamaru Usman when he beat him in London, fair enough. I just think Leon Edwards is just too good.
No,
it really is that simple.
No, and like you're saying there about like the cage wrestling, Kyle, for Leon, like is active in it as well. He's not just there holding back with defense. He's striking, he's moving, is a pain in the ass for fighters. You know what I mean? Like I just can't see Bilal doing much. Buzzing, he's got the shot, he deserves it, but I just don't see him doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Leon's cage wrestling there. The one thing I want to point out, his cage wrestling is so good, like to a fault, that he will get cocky and take down people he shouldn't be taking down and getting on the ground with. Like that's the knock on Leon, if anything, at this point. Like he puts himself in positions he just doesn't need to. And I worry he could do that against Bilal, to be honest.
It's true. But again, he's just so good at making adjustments mid-fight. Like we all saw it in the first Usman fight, didn't it? When he pulled it out the bag. Like again in the second, he's so technical and on it, Leon, and he's so unbothered by the outside world. His whole life is fighting. And I think like, go on, you know, we see Bilal on stuff, mouthing off, doing bits. You don't see that of Leon. Not that that's going to thingy much, but I'm all on the Leon train, baby. Choo-choo.
Yeah, I think that'll round it out for UFC 304 in Manchester. As I said right at the very start.
Yeah, just one thing, Kyle. I know you've referenced it a couple times during this conversation we've had. Do you have the whole card that we predicted in front of you? Because if you do, I just think it'd be a fun comparison.
Oh, the fantasy one.
Yeah, you've referenced it a couple times, so I was wondering if you had the whole thing. I just think it'd be a nice comparison.
I don't know. Did we ever make a full thing?
I'll go and sort that for tonight. We'll get that up, Steve. That's a good idea. I'll sort that.
Let me quickly search it on my Google Docs and see if I did.
If you did send it to Kyle.
Of all of them, I do have the full list.
Perfect. Let's compare. Let's do this.
So running from bottom to the top really quickly, we had Modestas Bukauskas versus Ion Cutelaba, which ignore I said that. Then we had Mick Parkin versus Lima. Again, top 15 opponent that we wanted for Mick Parkin. We had Kalen Loughran versus Cameron Simon, which would have been an absolute banger, but I'm very happy with the fight that we have ended up with.
Yeah, of course.
We had Farid Basharat versus Pedro Munoz. That was a Jake fight, and absolutely outrageous that we had to put it that low on the card. We had the people's main event, Christian Leroy Duncan versus your boy Eric Anders. Nathaniel Wood versus Pineda, already announced.
Yeah, that was already announced. Yeah.
Meatball Molly McCann versus Loma Lutbunmi, which hopefully we will get next if Molly gets her hand raised in Manchester. Arnold Allen versus Giga, as announced. Paddy versus Green. Mokaev versus Kai Kara France was our pick over Manel Cap, which we all agreed that, you know, it would be one of the two. But I think we just decided that we liked the Kai Kara France matchup a little bit more. And we had Michael Venom Page versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, which, I mean,
it could happen
like,
next.
It could. It seems like neither of them really want to do it, but it could happen, I guess, at some point in the future. And then, you know, the two title fights at the top. So very, very different to what we ended up getting, but
very different, but also not too far off.
Not too far off either. We got pretty much all the correct names. We didn't get Farid Basharat on the card, but in terms of the UK and Irish fighters, we got most of them on there. Yeah, good stuff. I'm sure, you know, we will have stuff up. I mean, interviews on that on this very channel for this card. So go check those out, and I'm sure we will do a review. At the very least, that will be up next week. But until then, have a good 304 fight week, and we will catch you all soon.